I would put music and some audio cues in this intro, but I don't have any. Sorry.
How many times are you allowed to improvise while it's not recording? It was like totally improvised in the script.
Never. Well, Ghost Stories is the one. So Ghost Stories was a show that ADV acquired that did not do very well in Japan. In fact, it had sold so poorly that they were taking it off the shelves. So the Japanese company contacted ADV and they were like, we don't care what you do. We just need to recoup some of the money we lost on the show. Have fun.
How do you review Ghost Stories without bringing up the English dub?
Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. Konnichi whatever.
Konnichilingus.
The answer? You can't. How can you not? The thing is basically synonymous with the anime itself, to the point where it is the main attraction that probably got many people to watch it in the first place. It's a bit of an anomaly to have a dub where the entire thing is one big abridged series. Sure, you typically expect a dub to take some creative liberties, particularly pop culture references that fit within the appropriate regional context, but to have the entire show go from a fairly serious kids anime to this one big gag anime with all this ad-libbing and raunchy out-of-place humor? Well, you're just creating a different experience, which is exactly how Ghost Stories handles things.
Whatever. Just fill the hole filler.
Sure, jackass.
Rooted as a horror anime back in 2001 and retrofitted as this black comedy in 2005, the latter case is the result of when a company stops giving a damn and just wants to recoup the money they lost due to poor domestic sales, allowing the freedom to do whatever you want. And the result is something thoroughly enjoyable, maybe even occasionally brilliant, whose comedic longevity is a bit questionable, which isn't to say the native Japanese rendition of the work on display is anything to write home about. The story for both versions of Ghost Stories is about a girl named Satsuki Miyanoshita, who along with her brother Keiichiro moved to her late mother's hometown and promptly go to school there. We are then introduced to Hajime Aoyama, whose character is that of a standard wannabe leader role, Leo Kakinoki, a boy who's into investigating the paranormal, and Momoko Koigakubo, who's primarily just kinda there and is usually a damsel in distress. Initially, the town looks straightforward enough, except that it isn't, as near the modern school building lies the old school building, a place that's haunted by ghosts and evil spirits. One of those spirits is Amano Jaku, who is introduced as a big threat to our characters until, thanks to her mother's old ghost diary, is defeated and comes to possess the body of Satsuki and Keiichiro's cat, becoming a supporting character full of ambiguity. It turns out that Satsuki's mother was an exorcist as a kid, and even managed to establish a psychic link through Momoko. And with more and more ghosts appearing every episode, Satsuki and company are to take up the role her mother once filled, whether it be the fight against the toilet spirit that pulls the living into the spirit world, to resolving grudges and resting those who have died. It's a risky job, but someone has to do it, and for a kids anime, this is all played pretty straight, as long as you don't watch the English dub, because once you do, you'll come to find something virtually unrecognizable.
Is she grabbing her boobies? Leo! 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 God damn it! God damn it! God damn it!
There's a reason why one of the first things you see when you search for Ghost Stories on YouTube is a clip compilation of the English dub. Yes, it's not very faithful to the original script and comes to belong in an entirely different genre from its supernatural horror intentions. Simply put, though the English version kinda sticks to the original story, from the character changes to the pop culture references circa 2005 to the sex and drug references and all the other improvised fluff on offering, both versions lead to a different ball game. Seriously, as someone who has watched the entire series with the English dub but turned on the subtitles for the Japanese dub, let's compare what's actually meant to be said compared to what is actually being said.
You wanna be an Air Force Ranger? You wanna live a life of danger? You don't wanna get raped by strangers?
Well, this friend of mine doesn't want another kid, but her husband does. They're not using any birth control because they're married, and the guy actually finishes inside of her.
My results came back negative. I was clean. And then... yep, wouldn't you know? Bam!
It's clear the cast involved with the effort of transforming Ghost Stories had fun with it. Shit, they even make fun of the series' subpar animation and art quality.
Oh, and your father always thinks it's so cute to cross his eyes in pictures. See, look, he did it there.
And then there's the small things that are really brief but cracked me up upon hearing it.
I'm married. Gotta give these things up.
Look out, Ted!
His funny little requests.
Touch me.
His reprimands.
Touch me harder.
Looks like it's you and me, Raggedy Ann. Call me Barbie! Okay, fine. Looks like it's you and me, Barbie. I'm going fucking crazy.
The characters are even changed. Sure, Satsuki and Amano Jaku remain somewhat similar, though their characters are more exaggerated, but from having Hajime as an egotistical, perverted wannabe playboy, to Leo as a stereotypically Jewish nerd, to Keiichiro being mentally handicapped, and to Momoko reimagined as a hyper-Christian Jesus fangirl, the voice actors sure went the extra mile to make sure there was room for experimentation.
Have you accepted Jesus as your personal savior?
No, I'm Jewish.
It's a case where the whole subs versus dubs debate is flipped on its head, as it isn't a matter of faithfulness, quality, and execution of a singular translation from one language to another. If anything, the English voice cast were actually good across the board, mainly because this is very much their script with their own creative ideas, but rather it's a matter of preference. Do you want the serious flavor of the day in supernatural anime that deals in tragedy, mystery, death, and the sheer terror of being haunted by a pissed off doll that somehow manages to be considered kid-friendly by Japanese standards, or the remix that takes all of those elements, boils them down, and pokes fun at itself from top to bottom with humor so random and absurd that it can make for some good entertainment? It's purity versus creative freedom in the case of ghost stories.
Like if you leave children behind, pay your child support on time.
Deadbeat dads are not cool.
The Japanese version is a horror anime that isn't very scary, but packs enough character drama and a handful of fairly creative ghosts and scenarios that could have made for a compelling ride where our elementary school protagonists face off against otherworldly foes that does have the smarts to know when and when not to pull its punches. People get injured or nearly die. Circumstances and backstories can often reveal themselves to be grim tragedies, and it is all confronted by characters who haven't even hit puberty yet. So it's not like the potential for a great series wasn't there. The problem, and this can very much apply to the English version as well, is that the anime can be, shall we say, formulaic, generating a certain amount of tedium thanks to its insistence of following this recipe. Begin the episode with something. Establish the characters we'll see in the episode. Have characters come across the threat and/or obstacle. Show characters having difficulty overcoming threat and/or obstacle. Introduce solution from Ghost Diary or convenient MacGuffin. Use solution. Defeat the spirit. End the episode. Rinse and repeat until you have a total of 20 episodes. It also doesn't help that most of the characters don't actually change in either version of ghost stories. Sure, Satsuki and Amano Jaku get their cake, but from Hajime to the rest of the cast, they all stick to their predetermined roles from the beginning of the series all the way to the end. Granted, the English version is capable of offsetting the repetition through its humor and the more punched up personalities of the characters at large, and it's all in good fun for about 10 to 12 episodes until you realize that they have the tendency to use the same joke. We get it, Hajime is a horn dog, Momoko can't stop talking about Jesus, and Christian Slater's career fell into the dirt once Alone in the Dark dropped on our butt cracks. Just defeat the spirit enemy already.
And then when his mother came home, she found him. As dead as Christian Slater's career. And there's William Rehnquist, Bob Denver, Christian Slater's career.
Again, the English dub can be some good fun, and when it does throw in the more improvised and tonally mismatched humor, it can be refreshing. I particularly enjoy the smaller japs it does from time to time, and it does a good job in making fun of itself.
God, you are four of the ugliest fucking kids I've ever had the misfortune of laying my eyes on. I can't wait for this bitch to kill you.
But as the mileage accumulated, even as it tried to mix things up, the buzz dissipated the longer it went on. So while I do prefer the English version of Ghost Stories, even I have my limits. It's an officially licensed abridged series, and includes the limitations that entails because at the end of the day, it still follows the same overarching story. Ghost Stories even implies an environmental theme throughout the show where nature keeps making way for civilization, which affects the spirits in more ways than one as a consequence, which could have made for an interesting angle to take itself in if it went anywhere, which it doesn't. If anything, the show just kinda ditched the idea as it kept going. I can honestly imagine myself getting bored of Ghost Stories if I had watched it entirely in its Japanese form. The solutions are mostly underwhelming, usually involving the characters having to say some kind of chant or spell. The mysteries can be a little interesting, but usually have weak payoffs. And you know how I mentioned the whole psychic ghost mom thing Momoko had going? It's one big cop-out, and not even a cop-out that's used when her daughter needs it the most, and it's only only utilized a few times throughout its 20-episode span. Hey, your daughter is about to get fucked up by evil, angry spirit monsters. Why don't you help her more? And really, compared to other anime I've reviewed, there isn't a whole lot else to say about Ghost Stories. After watching it, I'm not surprised that the show wasn't a success in Japan. It's an anime that doesn't seem well fitted for either kids or fans of Japanese horror. As a kids anime, it is too dark to be attractive, and as a horror anime, it flops as it is without the existential element that makes great horror. And the reason it lacks that is because it wanted to appeal to kids as a demographic. And the English dub was made the way it was because the company that owned the show didn't care about how it turned out, and in the process, ADV made something with a firm direction, even if it does lose its steam after a while.
Oh, damn anime! Look what's happened to my eyes!
In the end, do I recommend Ghost Stories? Or better yet, which version do I recommend? Honestly, though it isn't the true story, I'd have to go with the English version, despite my gripes with it. But that's due to the anime being rather average to begin with when you get down to brass tacks. The ad-lib script just makes it a hell of a lot more bearable. The setup is interesting, the scenarios can be kinda cool, the horror is flat, but the tone is in its right place. I would like to say that the Japanese version of Ghost Stories was a good anime, but the truth is, it's neither all that good or all that bad. It's simply an anime that took multiple directions and compromised on both as a result, which is something the English dub fixes by not giving a shit. It can get repetitive, the characters are a bit one-note, the dub's abridged-esque direction only took it so far before becoming routine and dated in its references, even if it can be entertaining. The show doesn't even look all that good, something the dub makes fun of from time to time, and overall, the factor that will inform your decision is whether you want Ghost Stories for what it is, or for what it can be. I personally like the latter much more. I'm not the kind of guy who takes the subs versus dubs debate super seriously. I will watch a sub if I must, or I can watch a dub if I can, but when a sub and a dub are almost entirely different shows that nearly belong in two completely different genres, then the only way to continue is to pick a side. Which version of Ghost Stories will you choose?